more irrigation water to open up more land.
This is KTN News.
All right, so if it's Thursday, it's time for State of the Nation. We take a look at some of the big political stories that have made headlines during the course of the week and sort of help to mince them up and understand them a little better. If you're just joining us, allow me to reintroduce our panel this morning. Sitting closer to me is Ambrose Weda. He is an advocate at the High Court. In the middle, the immediate former Senator to Murang'a County, Honorable Kembi Kitura. On my far end, Deputy Party Leader to the ANC Party, Honorable Kipruto Arab Kira. Gentlemen, it's always a pleasure to have you this morning. Let's begin with that aspect where early this week there was an announcement that they just want to make NYS now a corporate body where we'll see it becoming decentralized. But the question around this is, it being changed, NYS being changed into a corporate body with a CEO, with a board and all that, do you think, and I'll begin with Honorable Kembi Kitura, do you think it will solve the core problem, which is corruption in this case?
I think they are making every effort, and this should be commended, because we have to try, we have to make effort where it is necessary. Because I think this is recognition that NYS is very important. And I know personally that NYS is very important because I've seen young men and women go through it, and I've seen them building their careers thereafter, you know, into accounting, into mechanics, into some go to the military and others to the police force. And I know, so NYS, in my view, is very important in helping a lot of our young men and women. But I don't want to say it's failed. What I like to say is that the people who have been entrusted to it have failed it. That we have a director generals and other people going there, and there's been a lot of looting, as everybody now knows. So I think what the cabinet is doing under the President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta is to do everything possible to salvage NYS. It's a very big infrastructure. It's a very big institution. If you go there and see the infrastructure out there, it's tremendous. Lots of money has been put into it. And so I think the idea here is to make it work. And make it look corporate with a board of directors and the director general now becoming a CEO. If that's what is going to help NYS, then I think is important. Because what happened in the National Assembly recently when they reduced the budget of NYS to seem to punish NYS, I think was wrong. Because it's not the young men and women who have done anything wrong. And their need hasn't changed. The need they have for NYS and the training there is still there. And they need to go through it. But sadly, when money is allocated there, it ends up in people's pockets. The idea is to look for solutions. It's not to appear to punish it.
Right. The
idea is to look for solutions. And if we are going the way of a board of directors with a CEO, if that is the way that is going to salvage it, so be it. It's interesting that they are going that route, considering that they were trying to reduce the parastatals. Now, NYS still appears like it's going to become also like a parastatal, an area where the government was trying to move from. But like I say, I think it's important that NYS is salvaged because those thousands of young men and women need to have their opportunity, and that chance should not be destroyed just because a few people have become so greedy that they cannot see public funds without wanting to steal it.
All right, Honorable Kipruto, your thoughts on that, and more so, now that we are seeing NYS being decentralized and turned into more of a corporate organization, should we not also be dealing with the core problems here, which is, for example, the procurement challenges that we've seen, the auditing and the budgeting and so forth?
Well, I think all is well-intentioned because NYS, in my opinion, is the foundation of our national sort of psyche, in the sense that if you are able to take children through that formative stage and instill in them some sense of discipline, you are likely to get a better citizen, somebody focused on the skills and capacity to perform. I remember I had a secretary, a Kenyan, who went through NYS. And when I had my mission in Addis, she came to my office and we worked together. She did some few courses, and now she's a senior person within the AU. And yet she climbed from there. This is something that should be done. More so given the fact that we are devolving a lot of resources. These resources are going to various counties without the requisite skills. Even people like masons, people like carpenters. So whatever we are doing, the structures we are building are structures that are wanting because we don't have the necessary capacity. The other day, the governor of Wasingishu wanted 2,000 fundis in Wasingishu for housing purposes. He could not get enough of them. And yet NYS has young men and women with these skills. What we need is to ensure that we train them, but we also improve their curricula, so that it's not just learning how to fix musumari here and there. It is a question of them understanding the discipline that is required for one to succeed as a Kenyan.
Right. I mean, whether President Uhuru Kenyatta, who was chairing this specific meeting, when the announcement was made, he said that we also need to clean the supply chain within NYS. Nevertheless, how do we begin to clean up an entire system, in this case NYS, that has been marred by corruption since day one?
I think let me tell you this. The solution that you make NYS like parastatal presupposes that other parastatals are very good. The structure works very well. I thought part of the problem is that you look at Kenya Power, you look at the pipeline, all these things. NYS is a paramilitary organization. I am a graduate, I went there. The problem with NYS is not the structure. It is the people in there. The procurement process, which has a problem in NYS, is the same as in Kenya Power, is the same as whatever. So we are addressing the problem in the wrong way. The problem must be addressed by having the right people. NYS has had problems over the years. It's only that now people have become hawkish. Why do I say so? If you go to the other side, near Warak, you'll see quite a number of buildings done by NYS, abandoned. Nyayo Bus was under NYS, down. When I was there, you would see buildings.
Right.
There used to be some Ugandan contractor. I don't know his name. It did wonders in NYS. So NYS has been a cash cow. It's only that Kenyans have now become hawkish.
So we're saying the problem is not even the system. Well,
It's not the system.
per se,
It's
but
not
the
the
people.
system. I think the problem is not the system. Otherwise, why would we have other parastatal chiefs and their officers in court?
And speaking of that,
Yes.
the aspect that with NYS, the
Yes.
problem is the people. Why is it that you think that it's always, well, with this specific case, the PS has become the sacrificial lamb? We saw it with Lilian Omolo. Right now, Dr. Wino Izwan has become nominated for that seat. Unlike other dockets where we're seeing the cabinet secretaries themselves, Rotich, Matiang'i, all of them, Kiunjuri, Balala, who are feeling the pressure. But with NYS...
You'll have to see who the CS is.
Right.
And how close he is to the powers that be. At the end of the day, we'll fight graft, but still, if your friends are more powerful, then there will be excuses for you. You understand that? This is not the first time NYS is in has issues, and then you find the trouble goes down. The endemic problem with NYS requires that it be addressed by having the right people sealing the loopholes, not the structure. The loopholes are say that the supply, I don't know whether, because military is close to you, cannot know, but it is said that if I supply meat, and then we admit this number of students, the loophole there is that would say, bring this, get this money, get it out, and it is assumed the students ate it or they were paid. It is not that there's no board somewhere, it's not CEO, it's not all this. That has to be addressed directly by having the right people. And the day you see the minister in charge of NYS in court and the PS together, these jokes will just end.
All right, so even still singing on the same tune of corruption, Honorable Kipruto, you were once the former minister, or rather you are the former Minister of Agriculture. Yes. This game that we're seeing within the sugar scandal, number one, of course, the new light the new perspective we got is that some of the MPs were bribed 10,000 to 30,000 Kenyan shillings. Nevertheless, during your time as Minister of Agriculture, would you have imagined that Kenya would be stuck in this sugar scandal? Because that's what we are now. We are stuck in this sugar scandal.
I think this is a scandal of monumental nature in the sense that it is not just one minister. I've said it before, and even Michael was doubting whether I was casting aspersion on an office that does not exist. This is a huge scandal that involved a number of members of parliament who themselves are either directly importing sugar or they are closely related with sugar importers. And it was almost on both sides of the equation, both inside the house and also within the cabinet. I remember that a decision like blanket importation of sugar would not have taken place unless it has been decided by the cabinet that so be it. Number two, there must have been close liaison between the Minister for Agriculture, Minister for Trade, and Minister for Finance for that blanket to be lifted, the window to be opened for the importation. So this is something that people are shy to say where the problem is. They are running away from it, and in the process, they are hoping that this thing will go away without any one of us being mentioned. That's why I was saying, yes, I pity some members of parliament because many of them are people of integrity. But you see the way it is, the house has been soiled by a few names that have done the wrong thing. And I was thinking what the two leaders and the CS suggested yesterday, when a case has you've been so embroiled in it, let it be lifted to an independent institution, deal with it, let us get people of integrity from our society, not necessarily members of parliament, but people like Kembe here, I don't know about Weda, and a few others. So that we go to the root cause of this problem and we say this is where the problem is.
So are you suggesting perhaps having a committee that has no politicians in it but more professionals deal with the investigations?
You know, all politicians are suspect. Even those who have not committed crimes, they are suspected they are about to do so. The issue is let it be cross-cutting. Let us have politicians. Let us have some of the either serving charges of the High Court or former, or whatever is the case, have a cross-cutting thing, a small committee of about 10 people, go through these issues, because some of them are worried of naming their colleagues across the floor.
In this case, even perhaps professionals who are laboratories within the specific matter to handle this.
They will actually have the services of all these institutions like KEBS.
Yes.
They will get the
because
information.
we failed to see the government chemist come for the grilling. But
People
how
are
many
shy.
private,
People,
yes.
Zinzi, people are shy to tell the truth. At least they said copper was there to the extent of 27%, which is 20% above the normal limit. They said there were traces of mercury. All these things were said, and they have been confirmed separately that out of 100 samples, about 72 were seen to be free from any impurities, and 28 have a problem laced with impurities. Now, if you are telling us that 28 of the food is laced with impurities, you are effectively telling us the food you are eating is poisoned. And as Mheshimiwa said earlier, we want to see whatever has been detected to have any problem being banned, and also whatever has been detected to have come through the wrong route also being destroyed, so that people who brought it suffer the consequences of bad manners.
So, gentlemen, we're seeing the DCI camping now, the Kenya Revenue Authority as well as the Kenya Ports Authority, a lot of them being looked into for accepting the kickbacks to allow the contraband goods that we're just talking about. And during that specific discussion, they say that they will also go after the small fish. Perhaps, Honorable Ken, because a lot of the times you're always like, jail the big fish. Could you demystify and help us understand that how the role that even small fish within these agencies play quite a big role as well in this supply, should I say, of corruption?
I've actually never said that you just need to jail the big fish. Everybody should be jailed. Everybody who is involved in corruption should be jailed. I don't know what they're going to do, because I don't think the prisons we have in Kenya are sufficient. They may have to release a lot of petty criminals to allow space, or even convert one of the hotels in town into a jailhouse. They have to really, because it's becoming so serious that there are so many of these people that is unbelievable. Corruption is like we've kept saying, is a very, very serious thing in this country. And when we talk about the big fish, when you see a policeman taking a bribe yeah, a policeman, a police officer taking a bribe at the roadblock, when he takes 50 bob from you, what I understand happens, I will say it's rumors like Weda said, but what I hear happens is that 50 bob, or another 50 bob he collects, is then put together, and it ends up with his boss, you know, the commandant, the traffic commandant or whoever, and then it is shared down. That's what I hear. So that small money is forced to that criminality by his boss. So it's a racket. This is what are called cartels, because that's how you build these cartels. And these are things that we must try and abolish in this country. What is happening in our country today is very refreshing. I'm finding it very refreshing that we are able to deal with all manner of people. If you're on riparian, I hear some governors saying rivers should be diverted. I don't know how you change the course of a river. Then the people have started coming with a funny story that look at River Thames, all the big rivers in Europe. And we've been there, we've seen all these rivers. Why are they not diverted? Why are houses not being demolished? And this is making ridiculous of the whole argument. These are people who do not understand about city planning. They don't understand that what they're now trying to tell us is that we should make what was criminal yesterday, we decriminalize it today, so that whether in Kipruto or Kiro are suited. A crime is a crime. If you steal my land, and the people must be made to understand this very carefully. If you steal my motor vehicle, my car, then you go to the registrar of motor vehicles and falsify a logbook. Then you sell that motor vehicle to Weda, who is unsuspecting, and he is what you call in law, you know, a buyer for value without notice. And so he reckons he has a title because he's got a logbook. Then Weda sells that vehicle to Kipruto or Kirwa and transfers it to him, and he has absolutely no knowledge. That motor vehicle remains a stolen motor vehicle. And when they catch up with it, it will still revert to me because it was stolen from me originally. Then Kirwa can now sue Weda, and Weda can sue the person who sold it to him, and this is the law, because every title must have a root. So what is happening in Nairobi now, what these people are saying is that you stole a riparian land, because riparian land is not supposed to be transferred to anybody. It's public land. You built on riparian land, and now it is not just encroaching. Some people have built over rivers, so that rivers are flowing under. They are not canalized, but they have been made to flow under. And that land was not yours from the start. Now you want us to say that now that should be legalized, so that what you did wrong is now said to be okay, so that your billions of shillings are not destroyed. And this makes nonsense of the law. And this is the root of impunity, because then it means that you just need to do something wrong, then we come and say, no, too much money is involved here, we cannot put that money to waste. No. Zidzi, these things must come to a stop. And the only way to deal with corruption, the only way to deal with impunity is what is happening in Nairobi today.
Right. And on that note, we're seeing, like, look at this Standard newspaper this morning, 100 billion in about 6 months. We were just making a fun here now that billions in Kenya has become such a common name. Do you think that the DCI, now that they're going after these big offices, that the Kenya Revenue Authority and the Kenya Ports Authority, do you think that they have enough political support to do the job that they're supposed to do?
I think we have come to a point of no return. You had the president say in church, addressing the bishop and telling him, the bishop, I think it was a lady, telling her that he's lost a lot of friends, but it's okay, he'll create new friends. When the president makes a statement like that in public, in church, if tomorrow he changes that position, then people will be lost. Trust will be lost, and people will lose faith in what they seek. You understand? If Kinoti, who told us that people tried to bribe him, I think it was 700 million shillings, if he changes tact now and we find him slackening, then people would think that he accepted the 700 million shillings after all. So I think we've reached a point of no return where Kinoti, and I say I've never met this gentleman Kinoti, but I'm sure I'll meet him in due course. I wish and pray that he keeps the path. Him and Haji. And I wish and pray that they're going to get the necessary political support, because what they have done now, what is remaining now, the executive has shown that it has teeth and is going to bite, It doesn't care who it bites. Then now we have I don't know about the legislature because I don't know what to say about it anymore. But if the judiciary follows through, I'm not saying people should be jailed when they have done nothing wrong. But the judiciary now comes and tells us credibly that so-and-so was charged with stealing 100 billion shillings, and they've gone in for so long, but they've plea-bargained, they've returned the 100 billion shillings, or it was frozen in their accounts. Have you noticed that some people are not able to raise bail? It's because the money they stole is frozen.
Has been frozen.
So they have no access to it.
Right.
And as long as that happens, and then they plea-bargain because the money is lost anyway, it is in frozen, then we might start seeing changes in this country. Speaking
of President Uhuru Kenyatta here, Weda, I'd love for you to get onto this one because now KRA has been, well, DCI has told KRA staff that they need to declare the wealth through a lifestyle audit, including those ones of people close around them. Lifestyle audit has now become a joke. We haven't seen it with our own political leaders happen. This is after President Uhuru Kenyatta himself said that he will also carry, he will carry one out. 2 months ago, he said that all public staff will have to go or do a polygraph test. It's been 2 months since we read the next financial budget. No lifestyle has been conducted. What do you make of this? And here we are now telling KRA officials, you know what? In this whole fight of graft, you also have to make your wealth known through a lifestyle audit.
I think the lifestyle audit is going on. Maybe it's not going on in the way we want or we imagine, but it is going on. The people are concerned. The people in public sector, the people who are at the core areas, they're actually being asked. Their M-Pesa transactions, their wealth, all these things, and it is going on. But we can say the DCI has teeth, we can say Haji, we can say all these things. If President Uhuru was to turn again, when he said that he has lost friends, people are calling him, he basically disclosed why this has gone so far. Because these people are calling him, always knew. They were doing this and they knew where to call. It is only that the president switched off and said, now I'm not taking any call, let every person take his own course. That is what we call the political goodwill we have been talking about. And it comes only from one place, the president. If you have the goodwill of the president, even yourself here, you can't be sacked from here whatever you do. As long as everybody else knows that this one and the president is direct. Do you understand? So the president is on the right trajectory. And that trajectory is what we've been waiting for, is what is good for the country. And that is what can minimize, reduce. Corruption is reduced, it's never eliminated. You reduce it. It has reached beyond. So you reduce, like temperature, you reduce it down.
So you still have hope that the lifestyle audits are happening and we receive results?
They are happening. The lifestyle audits, especially for those who are in offices, the people who, procurement officers, they are going on. You saw there was a time we were looking here how somebody was blindfolded, they went to a place, they were being asked questions, and so on. It is only that our imagination about the lifestyle audit is different from the way it is being done. It's being done basic.
All right, time will tell. Time will tell.
That basic will still reveal, because if, let's say you are earning 100,000, your M-Pesa transaction alone is $1 million. Your children are in Banda school. You fly them occasionally to the Mara and to the whatever. All this will ask you, my dear, we must see the sources of this income. And then other than that, once you have put that, then it will control you, it will control the future taking. So part of the audit will help us control how to prevent people from taking more. You can have money, like the counties have had money before, you have not used it, you have to return it. Once, you also can't put it in the bank. We can't keep it in our own houses, because you can wake up and you find your spouse has taken off with it. So it will reduce corruption.
All right, so gentlemen, away from this whole graft issue, I really want to hear your thoughts on matters Meru and Tharaka Nithi. Earlier this week, we saw the political leaders from those two regions saying that, you know, we've given Raila Odinga our backing if he chooses to run for presidency come 2022. Let me just remind you and our viewers that during the August 8th election, Raila Odinga managed to get around 55,000 votes out of 700,000 votes in Meru, as well as only 10,000 votes out of about 200,000 votes in Tharaka Nithi. Honorable Kembi, do you think that that statement that we saw from the Meru leaders as well as the Tharaka-Nithi leaders is, given those figures, do you think that it is a sincere support or it's
but you see,
support?
those figures that they gave are historical, that you are giving a historical, the 55,000 votes, vis-a-vis 750,000 votes, whatever number. What those leaders are saying is that they will support Raila going forward.
Yes.
Right? So if they, politics is a game of numbers. And it's dynamic. It doesn't stop it in one point in time. So what happens in 2022 may be very different from what happened in 2017. It depends on where the wind is blowing and who is blowing it and how it's being done. If people come together, in 2002, for instance, when Right Honorable Raila said Kibaki Tosha, the temperatures went down and the election became much easier that time towards electing President Kibaki. That's when Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta lost. So politics is about numbers, it's about dynamism because it's dynamic and changes from day to day. The only question is that whether a leader can say they will support so and so, but they cannot bind the people. They don't necessarily bind the people, because then that becomes this happens during the campaigns, where you go now to campaign for a specific person and convince the people the reason you want them to vote for this person now, whereas they did not vote for that person. You did not tell them the same story last time, because it's changing.
And speaking of which, with these political games, with the Meru leaders and the Tharaka-Nithi leaders, some of them are majority Jubilee leaders, the same leaders who are also saying that URP leaders are against the fight that we're seeing in corruption from President Uhuru Kenyatta and his administration. Is there a rift-raft in the Jubilee party?
I told you politics is dynamic. And sadly, a lot of people are now thinking about 2022 politics and elections of 2022. And it's going to be very expensive. Because it started very early. It's going to be very expensive because you might even find that money meant for development is being used for campaigns.
As early as now.
As early as now, 4 years before the elections. So I think what we need to do, and I said this last Thursday, and I want to say it again, when you see leaders in a particular place saying that we shall vote for so and so, we've decided, the people of this region have decided they'll vote for so and so come 2022. That's a nonsense argument. Because the leaders may have made that decision for their own expediency, right? But they cannot commit people because there has been no public participation, there has been no public barazas where they sit with people and sensitize them.
Yes.
There have not been campaigns to tell the people why we are saying we shall support so and so come 2022. So those leaders talking about 2022, essentially they are talking about themselves. What we need to be talking about right now, if you ask me, is about building bridges, is supporting what is correct. And the Building Bridges initiative has made a lot of difference, whatever anybody may say, because why DCI, Kenoti, and Haji are able to deal the way they are dealing with these corruption issues is because Kembi Getura will not stand and say, it is my people who are being persecuted. It is my tribe which is being persecuted. It is political. People are now starting to learn to bear their own crosses because they will not be able to run back to their own tribal cocoons because there is nobody to listen to them, or their own small little party cocoons because they go there and find Raila has moved on. They go in there, find Uhuru Kenyatta has moved on. They are busy building bridges about how to make this country a better place. And this, in my view, is lots and lots of fresh air that is now breathing or coming through our nation.
And you don't think it's all a PR gimmick? There's actual work that is being done.
I want to believe it is not. Like I said, I think we've crossed the Rubicon. I think we've gone beyond we've gone beyond now coming back to Misri because we cannot afford to, because the presidency cannot afford to. It's gone too far. The commitment looks very, very committed and real. I don't see him trying to go back. I do not see even the Chief Justice and his judiciary. I'm sure he is going to have to give directives to the judges and everybody else that corruption cases must be dealt with expeditiously so that Kenyans know right free what has happened to this specific corruption case.
I'm very curious to hear Honorable Kipruto's comments on this, given that he is the deputy party leader to ANC. When you saw this, the Meru and Tharaka Nithi political leaders saying that they will back Ruto if, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, if he chooses to run for presidency come 2022, what did you make out of it?
Well, I think their first mission was to support former Prime Minister on the issue of the handshake. Given the fact that, well, our simple definition of the handshake is even political landscape and also national cohesion and integration. That was the primary motive of that. But also in politics, people vote against. They are more often vote against an individual than vote for an individual. What do I mean? They might be having something in their mind. There is somebody they want to vote against, and they want to tell that person, we are not going to support you 2022. And therefore, the flip side is, we are supporting former Prime Minister should he choose to run. Because the former Prime Minister has made all indications that he may not be in the run. And it's we who are forcing him to want to run. I would imagine that the former Prime Minister and President Uhuru Kenyatta will leave us better legacy if both of them will be exceeding the political landscape and delivering to Kenyans a platform that anybody who wins an election shall be declared the winner.
Whether I'll let you have the last say, I just want to hear your general thoughts on that conversation.
I think one thing which is very clear, if Honorable Raila stays with Uhuru up to the end, there are two scenarios. If he chooses to run against Mheshimiwa Ruto, he will beat him so far. One, if he chooses to pick his party leader and back, they will defeat Mheshimiwa Ruto. Those two options are open.
All right.
So, in the absence of Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga on the ballot, it's game over for him. This time, I can see it.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Helping us understand a lot of what's happening within the country. And we're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, person of interest is next time. My colleague Michael Gitonga will be the one conducting that specific interview. But grab a copy of your local dailies. A lot of these stories that we've discussed are being highlighted there. Let's take a breather to digest all this. We'll be right back. Stay with us.